Hi, everyone. I believe we're live. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody, to today's Additionality event brought to you by SmartBee. My name is Alexandra Pelka, and I'll be this afternoon's moderator. Together, we are going to explore the concept of additionality and experts, impact funds, and committed entrepreneurs. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we're good.
Give me a second. Someone is not muting. Okay, I think it was actually me. So I'll start again. I'm very sorry. Okay. Very sorry for that interruption. So again, my name is Alexandra Pelka, and I will be the moderator of this afternoon session of the event. And together we're going to explore the concept of additionality, and we will give you a deep insight on the topic together with experts, impact funds, and committed entrepreneurs who will give us an insight into concrete achievements and their experiences as real change makers of their fields. If you haven't had the time to join the French morning session, I want to welcome you and thank you for being with us today. Otherwise, welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed your lunch break and the networking session. You're muted, so please make sure to type in your questions in the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen to the agenda. As you might have already seen when registering for this event, we have some very special guests today who will give us a flavor of the current projects and will also help us satisfy our needs to real impact solutions. We are looking at interventions in the finance and the carbon market, as well as projects on additionality and impact solutions. Each session will be around 45 minutes, of which 30 will be the intervention and 15 Q&A. So if you have any questions, please make sure to put them into the Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen, right next to the chat function you can also use to interact. If you have further questions, or if you want to interact with other attendees or the speakers after the event, we also created a networking session after the last presentation. You can find the networking area on the left side of your screen at networking. If you click on Expo, you can also find more information on SmartBee, today's host. Yeah, our goal is to not only give a stage for additionality and the concept, but also to bring people together. So please use the networking session as an opportunity to connect and have a very vivid exchange. Let's get started. To the next slide. Perfect. Yeah, before having a very deep insight into the term of additionality, I wanted to give you a quick introduction into the meaning of additionality, as it is an especially charged topic, and the concepts of additionality and baseline are lacking of well-formed definitions everyone concurs on. So I want to give you a very standard definition I'm going to use throughout the whole presentation and event. Additionality is the property of, what a surprise, being additional. But what exactly does that mean? In simple words, it describes whether an intervention is causing activity distinct from the baseline being here the activity without intervention, holding all other effects as constant. Additionality is, however, a very complex concept. It is essentially a question of causation. What causes a particular policy intervention or mitigation action? And it's not the absence of the project that is defining characteristic of a baseline. It is the absence of our recognized policy intervention. So as you can see here, we have the baseline, we have the activity without the intervention, and we have the intervention itself. Talking thinking about one. This would mean that we are looking at, for example, the reduction of greenhouse gases thanks to the market for carbon offsets. So greenhouse gas reductions are additional if they would otherwise not have occurred in the absence of a market for carbon offsets. Important to mention is that only the reduction caused by this intervention can be called additional. Those interventions, in form of carrots or sticks, can cause a change of behavior that leads to additionality. Examples from those interventions could be economic subsidies for an activity, measures to decrease transactional costs, informational or educational campaigns, or for example, providing a new infrastructure. As the word offset indicates, the typical use for this unit is to allow companies or individuals to compensate for their emissions by supporting reductions elsewhere. With this rationale, an action cannot be certified as an offset merely because it reduces emissions, but rather because it is motivated by the incentive provided by the scheme. Additionality is key to ensure that non-fiction carbon units, so units that do not represent real emission reductions, actually compromise carbon global markets. If countries or other entities, let's say, use such units to comply with the organizations or mitigation obligations, such as offsetting, this would result in an overall increase of emissions instead of a reduction. So we can actually say that additionality is hence a safeguard of environmental integrity. Only when the type of intervention is recognized and defined as narrowly as possible, I hope this is somehow clear, a limited set of alternative baseline scenarios are elaborated and revised for the model scenario. So we can start asking if a proposed activity is additional and if an intervention has caused the proposed activity to take place. Another example is the measurement of impact of investments, as it ensures that a chosen approach is aligned with initial objectives, that an involvement of the context could be given, and that the results produce expected additionality. So if there is a predefined measurement that stabilizes the trust and the confidence between an investor and the company, it is possible to align financial interests with the impact approach. So this impact measurement is, for example, then a criteria to define additionality, which is also linked to the financial incentive plan creation. What is needed is a measurement definition and a proof of additionality for impact reporting. And this is the tricky question: how is this possible? In order to achieve a credible and transparent impact reporting, we need compliance regarding a documentation of the impact strategy and each step of the investment stages, as well as of the impact strategy of the investment process. Furthermore, all indicators need to be relevant and looked at in the context of the place and time of impact in the value chain, the investor's contribution to the achievement of impact, and of course the robustness of data. And this one is very critical. The data needs to be justified and transparent in order to be validated, and we'll hear about that later on. These and other indicators have to be comparable to the baseline, as you have seen in the first slide of the presentation, and the context to ensure the value of the impact achieved. Only if we have a credible additionality, this risk factor of the investment process can be covered and ensure the value of the assets in the portfolio or the fund. As mentioned before, the difficulty is in the detail. So this means that the definition of additionality and the transparency of the provided information. This is now a very simplified description of additionality, and it will be elaborated more extensively during the expert presentation this afternoon. But we can say that it is an essential principle to be able to implement mechanisms that are necessary for the transformation of our economy to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. the SDGs. It is a tool everyone should be aware of, which is why we're dedicating today's event to the concept of additionality. It helps us detect greenwashing and greenwishing and fight against it. Questions we will answer during this event are tackling how we can properly measure additionality and what role does it play in impact finance and transformational economy. There are many challenges we are facing, and together with our guests, who are experts of their fields, we are going to tackle them, explore opportunities, and learn more about a concept too often misunderstood or undervalued. And with this short introduction, I would like to pass the word on to our first speaker, Zokama Sakanga, who is CEO of SmartBee. So with his more than 20 years of experience in emerging technologies and computer network he gained during his work in R&D at Motorola, Zokama wanted to create a real impact strategy on a larger scale. Together with his partners from SmartBee, they focus on incentivization for end-to-end traceability and proof of impact issued in smart cities. And this is only just a very, very small part of your project. I think with your 3 pillars of achieving net zero, you actually help to reduce direct greenhouse gas emissions, offset carbon through incentivational models, and you help the decarbonization issue for a last mile delivery package service. So Zokama, I will leave the floor now to you so that you can explain in more detail how SmartBee is changing the way we see economy of impact, and how additionality plays a crucial role in that context. Please.
Thanks, Alexandra. Hi, everybody. Nice. I don't know if you were there this morning. If you were here this morning, hello again. If you're just coming, welcome. So yeah, SmartBee is the sponsor of the proud sponsor of this event. Because additionality is quite important for us, and I think it will become more and more important for everybody. And as it turns out, it has to be a collective effort. So as Alexandra described additionality, we realized that it has to be a common effort involving a lot of different actors and happening at scale, really. It's just you can't just get to the results, the impact results that you're expecting with only a few people. So it has to scale, has to involve a lot of people, and that's what the SmartBee platform provides, and that's the idea behind this event as well, to bring everybody together and start acting on those issues. So we saw with Alexandra's presentation that additionality is a concept and maybe kind of a go-to solution to move forward the carbon emission issues. A lot of different actions have been taken in the past. A lot of different kind of measurements, a lot of different projects. But I think that with additionality, we're getting to a concept where we can finally really measure and finally get to a real impact. So in a way, we could say that additionality is the measurement of the real impact, the actual impact, because so you're not just measuring what good has been done or what bad has been reduced. You're measuring how to finance it, and you're creating the economic model that goes around it. So that's my first point, actually, is to describe additionality as a sort of an intersection between data management, economic models or financing model creation, and specific field expertise, because there's a lot of different verticals it can apply to. And so that's what we work on at SmartBee. That's the way we look at the subject, at the topic, and our solution that we push forward to help the ecosystem getting to the expected results is through registries, basically. So what we do is that we provide, as SmartBig, we provide a technical solution, and the first building block of that solution is the Additionality registry. So in this registry, we're capturing all of the data. We're valorizing the data, so we're validating it, making sure the data is actually what it should be, and is validated by different means, different third parties, for example, and we also ensure regulatory compliance. This registry is kind of the trusted environment where all of the different actors around the project can either submit information or get trusted information as well. So this is what's one of the important points of the additionality, is to create a trusted environment. In that trusted environment, create proof of the actual additionality and register it. So that's what the registry is about. But obviously, it's not the usage of this registry has to be specified and structured. So the starting point for all of our registry is some kind of regulation, or let me put it more broadly, some kind of rule where or guideline where a government, lawmakers, a development bank financing projects, or any kind of formal institution is going to set the rules to define impact and, to be more precise, additionality. So this works when you want to validate carbon emission reduction. Also works for carbon absorption, for example. So carbon is a really good example, but we could imagine a lot of different additionality in education, for example, or energy. It could apply to any kind of field. So the starting point is the regulation. Beside the registry, so I was talking earlier about building blocks for the SmartBig solution. So the registry is the first one. The other important aspect of our solution is the impact protocol. And the impact protocol is a mapping of a regulation, put it simply. So a regulation comes out in a textbook in the form of law articles, and we're able, with help of field partners and experts, we're able to map a guideline, a framework, a given regulation into a protocol. Which data is needed, how is it validated, what format should the data take, and all of those aspects is defined in an impact protocol. The impact protocol can then be reused time and time again to fill the registry. Once we have created our impact protocol and the registry is being filled up, completed, then we can create certificates. So what I mean by certificates has a lot of different meanings. What I mean by that, a certificate is a kind of a unique identifier that will specifically point to a proof that is in the registry, and that proof encapsulating all of the data or all the link towards the data that it's made of. So when I've got my financer or maybe an auditing party who wants to validate that the certificate is valid and that it's really attached to an actual additionality, it's not just an indicator I have here with a simple number, a unit, and that's it. The point is to actually link it back to the registry. So you go to the registry, you can navigate the registry and making sure that every single aspect of this indicator has been validated. And then you can go even further. If you want to go back to the impact protocol and see exactly what's the process that has been used to validate that indicator, which source information has been used, who's been providing it, who signed off the validation, or for example. So the entire process is completely auditable. So this is for the overview. Just checking the time, not sure how much time I have. Yeah. So basic overview of what we provide: registries, impact protocol, and then we enable the different actors of the ecosystem to exchange those proofs and to validate those proofs. So talking about the ecosystem, we identify, 4 big families of stakeholders in a project. Could be flexible, could appear with different names, but that's kind of a standard distribution. So here we have the institution or the regulators, who could be the lawmaker or the party who's going to be creating the guidelines and the laws, the rules that are going to validate an impact or that of additionality. We've got a financer, the project owner, and the end beneficiaries. So looking at my previous diagram, the link would be made like this. So the institution, as I said, is creating the framework. The project owner usually is involved in the impact protocol creation and also manages the registry. The end beneficiaries submit data to the registry. So the end beneficiaries actually produce the proof. They produce the effort or the impact, and they are the one using the certificate to be rewarded by the financing body. That would be a fairly standard approach to our platform. So fairly standard here for us in this kind of organization. Obviously, it could be flexible, but that's kind of a good example here. So if we want to go into a little bit more details to know who can do what exactly. So we're using, I'm going to talk about the same thing, but with a different point of view. So here we've got the regulators, financiers, project owners, and beneficiaries. And I'm going to start with a regulator who's, as I mentioned previously, creating the regulation and frameworks. And the project owner is the one usually working on the impact protocol. So it's using the regulation. Could be that the project owner is asked by a financer to work on a specific regulation and asked to digitalize a regulation. So how can I create a process out of a given regulation? So we have got all the tools to set that up, and we try to industrialize the process as much as possible and make it simple for every participant. So here the impact protocol is created by breaking or converting guidelines into requirements. So from the requirements, this is a new element that we didn't see before. The beneficiaries have access to the platform and start interacting with the platform by providing the information. So either they can use auto-generated forms. That's what I was mentioning before about industrializing the process. So once you've got your impact protocol and your requirements defined, then you can use some automatic functions within the SmartBee platform to generate data collection interfaces, basically. That will match directly the regulation that's been mapped. So here you can, that's what I call auto-generated forms. You can have standard APIs or custom-made connectors as well, depending on the use cases. I'm going very, very fast on this. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need more details on this. So once the data is collected, goes back to the project owner or the body who's managing the project. And here we've got some data validation. So here, this is where I validate my additionality. we introduce, I'm just going to talk about it briefly, but we introduce here the concept of trustability, which would make the additionality data more or less valid. Basically, you've got a degree of validity. So today it's working fine. It's binary, so either the data is valid or not. But we can imagine that a lot of use cases where you can have different level of data strength or proof, strength of your proof, and which would be rewarded differently. So that's what the trustability is about. But basically, long story short, this is where the additionality is validated. And once it's validated, the financer receives his certificate saying, yeah, I've paid for this additionality, and this is my certificate. At this point, we can have, this could be a trigger. This is how it works for most of the cases where the generation of the certificate is triggering the financing of the beneficiaries, and usually the project owner is being compensated for the project management. Could work differently, but that's again a fairly standard way to approach the project. So you've got your the financing happens once the certificate is created, and then the financer usually does go through financing those kind of projects to have some kind of legal compliance towards the regulator. So showing the certificate to the regulator, and the regulator can then audit and navigate to the proof, as I mentioned before, going back all the way to the data and look exactly at the protocol and which data has been used to create the proof and all the validation processes and stuff like that. So those are the functional blocks that we implement with the different actors. And basically what's behind all of that. So, you have to imagine that it's actually below that. The base of the entire system is the additionality registry, where every single block here is going to interact with the registry, either to set up a impact protocol template, or to validate the processes, or to capture the data, and so on. I think I have 2 minutes left, I believe. I'm not quite sure about the time. But very quickly on that last one. So the additionality registry, the main features are, as I mentioned a few times already, it's auditable. It's completely autonomous. So you've got the ability to have governance model to handle its registry. It's not doesn't have to be centralized. It's open. Every piece of software is open source, obviously. Obviously to me, the chance is obvious to everyone. Data minimization means that we're only going to capture the fingerprint of the data and then create access controls towards the actual data. But the data that within the proof is just a fingerprint, so no actual data, personal data is shared, and it's low energy. So we make sure we're very conscious about the energy consumption and trying to keep the footprint as low as possible. So it's very low energy for every proof created and audited. That's about it. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any more questions. It was pretty short. It's a pretty complex system, so don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zokama. You did a great job telling us everything that is important in a very short amount of time, and answering all the problems I mentioned before in my presentation. So thank you a lot for the interesting insights into your latest achievements. Yes, again, as you already mentioned, you can reach out to Zokama directly via the chat function, or afterwards in a networking session. This will happen after the last presentation. Or you can also look at the expo area, where you can find his contact details and more information on Smart Bay. Unfortunately, as you already mentioned,